Hello, everybody. Okay, so this is going to be recorded. So for people that are watching on catch up, you are very, very welcome, even though you might not be here live, to leave any questions, comments, realizations, or anything that comes up for you in the chat, and I will come back at another time to answer any questions or any queries that you have. So I am going to share a window, bear with me. So this is a new system for me, so hopefully it's all going to work out. There we go, yay. So the question that so many women come to me around is, what if there is more? Okay, so let me see, see how I move forward with the, okay. So before we get started, before I explain who I am, before I talk about what I do, anything along those lines, what I would invite you to do is really dedicate time and energy into being present right now. So this is going to be around 30 minutes, maybe a little bit more. And you know what we do so often as women is we get so caught up in everything that's going on. We listen things half in listening and half doing something else, half listening to this and watching the TV, half listening to this as we're driving. And my invitation for you to really take this time out. And so if right now is not the time for you to be able to listen with full presence, then schedule it in for another time. So I'm going to invite you to settle into this space to bring your whole self here. So finding a position that's comfortable. It might be seated in a meditative position. Maybe it's lying down. And if it feels safe to do so, I'm going to invite you to close down your eyes or lower your gaze, or maybe just look at a specific point in the room and just bring your awareness to the breath. And we're not looking to like change the breath or do anything different, but we're just noticing the breath as it passes in and out of the nostrils and noticing the belly as it rises and falls. So just feeling the breath moving in and out of the body. And we're going to bring awareness to the scalp, the forehead, the head, the face. We're just noticing any sensations that might be present. So we're not looking to name them as good or bad or label them in any way, but we're just noticing what is present right now in this moment on your scalp, face. What sensations do you notice? Bringing awareness to the neck and throat. Noticing the shoulders, the upper chest and upper back. A reminder that we're not labeling, and you might notice your thoughts wandering to something that you need to do later or something that happened today. Just acknowledging that these thoughts are just going to pop up and then inviting yourself slowly back. What sensations do you notice? Bringing awareness to the upper arms and elbows. What's present for you right now? Bringing awareness to the lower arms, hands, fingers. Noticing what sensations are present. Bringing awareness to the lower chest, abdomen, middle back, lower back, noticing what's present there. Sometimes we have tension in this area. As women, we can be bracing. Just noticing what's present for you right now. Bringing awareness to the pelvic floor, genitals, glutes, anus. Noticing what's present, any sensations. Bringing awareness to the thighs. Bringing awareness to the knees, lower legs, feet and toes. Just noticing any sensations that are there. A reminder that there's no labeling of good or bad. And just an overall awareness now of the whole body and anything in the body in particular that's calling your attention. Before I invite you back, I'm just going to invite you to like wiggle your fingers and toes. Shift in your seat a little bit, add a little bit of movement, and then when you're feeling ready, taking a look around the room first, maybe having a stretch before you come back to the screen. And just noticing what shifted after doing that. Okay, so moving on. When people first come across me and meet me, they tend to see the person that I am and how I show up, how I speak, and think, quite often to themselves, or, it's something that they'll say out loud to me is, I couldn't be like you. I'm not like you. I'm different. I don't feel as confident in my body. I don't feel as rooted in my own boundaries. And, people have this idea that who I am now is who I've always been. And so I just wanted to share 2 photos that show, for me, a transition, a huge transition. So, the one on the left is me in my 20s. Not long after that photo was taken, I was invited to go skinny dipping because I was leading a sales team at the time. And I had so much body shame. And it's not that I had anything specifically that society told me that was wrong with my body, but there was just this deep shame of being a woman, having the body that I did have, and feeling, low self-esteem, low confidence, not speaking up for myself, all of those things. And, last year felt like a very big shift in my visibility. And I decided, as part of my branding, to have some photos done naked. And when I went to have those photos done naked, I got changed in the dressing room and I came out completely naked. And the photographer, Jen Hilton, said, "Gosh, I was expecting you to come out in like a dressing gown and then take it off and then go and stand there." And I was like, "No, I'm walking out of that changing room butt naked in my high heels," even though I'm not wearing them in this one, but I actually came out in high heels, and it felt really, really liberating. And like, this is, it just really rooted for me, the transition, and how much I had come home to myself. And so just a little bit about me and who I am. So you probably come to this talk because you're like, "Oh, this is interesting. Someone talking about sex and relationships." So my name is Carla Crivaro. I am sharing a lot of this information because I think it's really important to see how we can live outside of the box that we've been given around the social conditioning that we get, particularly as women, and how can we do things differently and feel in alignment to us. So I have a nesting arrangement with my ex-husband. So what that means is I live with the children all the time, and he lives with the children when he's parenting them. So we split the parenting 50-50. And then when I am parenting them, he lives with his partner. We were non-monogamous for a couple of years. So what that means is we were seeing and dating other people. We went to a play party together. I went to a few play parties by myself. And, people say, was it the non-monogamy that meant that you separated? And in fact, for us personally, the journey of non-monogamy actually increased our ability to communicate well and effectively, just because of how we approach that journey. And yeah, so it's important to note that, you know, things don't necessarily always need to go how other people or how everybody else is doing them, like what feels right to us, and staying true to that. I've got 2 children. I have a degree in broadcast journalism. I've been a wedding planner, an English teacher as a second language, and I've worked in sales. I'm trained as a sex, love, and relationship coach. I trained in sacred sexuality for men and masculinity. And my work is predominantly with women, men, couples, and you may have seen me online and in the press as well, and Channel 4's Sex Actually. So what I wanted to bring to today was archetypal work. I have seen in my own personal journey, and when I work with women that, and men as well, and couples, when I work with anybody, but today I'm going to be speaking specifically about women, that when I work with women, we already have the answers to everything already in ourselves. Like, we know what we need, and we get so caught up in all of the shoulds, all of the expectations, everything else that's going on around us, that we become disconnected to who we are, what our values are, what we really want, what our true desires are. And the archetypes are a really, really good way of stripping back and reconnecting to those parts of us that know. And so the 3 that come up so often as I'm working with women are the Queen, Mother, and Temptress. And so I'm going to go into a little bit more depth around these. The Mother is the first one I like to start with. And the reason being is the Mother is the one, along with the Queen, those 2 together create the foundation and create the container from which we can flourish. And so the Mother archetype is the one that has boundaries. And, you know, we hear this term really often around, you know, saying what we want and what we don't want. But boundaries can look like in your own business, having contracts, having agreements, ensuring everybody knows their roles. And boundaries can also be having agreements in relationships. And this is the thing that so many people don't think about or acknowledge, is we are often in relationships with so many people, and by relationships, not just romantic, but friends, and we never actually communicate what our expectations are in those relationships. We just move through expecting other people to do what we would do for them without ever checking whether or not that's something that they want, whether that's something that we actually want to give as well. And so boundaries is like the agreements that we can create with other people in relationships in a way that nourishes and supports us and helps us understand what other people want and how we can meet their expectations, or how we can share that, you know, we don't have the capacity or ability to be able to meet those expectations. The Mother is also the archetype of nurturing, and all of this is not about outside of ourselves. It's not mothering other people, it's being the mother to ourselves. And so the nurturing is like looking after ourselves, scheduling time to slow down. And especially with the women that I work with that are perimenopausal, menopausal, you know, a lot of the symptoms that women get around that time aren't because just of the hormone changes, but it's the accumulation of years or decades of women not looking after themselves, of taking too much on. And this is where self-care comes in. And self-care isn't just about taking yourself off to a spa date. Self-care is, how are you able to delegate, give tasks, give other things to other people and ask them to do things for you? Like, where can you do that more? How can you look after yourself? How can you create time in your diary to fill your cup up? Are you choosing activities and time which helps you to feel good? The Mother is also compassion. So are you speaking to yourself in a way that's loving and nurturing? Like, how would you speak to a child in a particular situation? You know, giving yourself that compassion, that patience, and that love, you know, because often we are our own worst critic. How would you want it, you know, when you find yourself in a particular situation, how would you how would you speak to another person in a similar situation, and offering that back to yourself? And, you know, for women who don't have a good connection to their own internal mother, these women, you know, tend to experience anxiety because they are denying their emotions. And what I mean by that is a woman who's not able to share her emotional state, you know, whether that's through journaling, whether that's through just acknowledging, oh, you know, I'm feeling sad today, I'm feeling worried, I'm feeling fearful. When we don't allow ourselves that opportunity to express, be with those emotions and share with somebody who can hold those emotions, we end up shutting it down, and we create like this bubbling pot, you know, and that vibration, that jitteriness that comes with anxiety is because we're keeping a lid on our emotional state. And anxiety also is when we're out of alignment. So when you say yes to something that you don't really want to do, then you can get anxious about it because you're agreeing to things that are out of alignment to who you are, what you have capacity for, your values. And so my invitation, and there'll be some questions a little bit further on, which you can pause on or screenshot and take some time to journal out. You know, but maybe take a look at where you are out of alignment. And then there's also the martyr, victim, karmic giving. And what I mean by that is, especially women who are mothers, and this is definitely a journey that I had, like I became the martyr to motherhood. And I have on my website an article that goes into depth around that. And what that looked like for me was, you know, doing everything for everybody, self-abandoning in a way that made me be the victim in my own life and my own situation. I became the martyr. And what's important to notice and be aware of is when you are doing things and you're doing things for other people, is it a clean give or is it a karmic give? So when you're giving from a clean place, it's from a place of generosity, full heart, excitement. When you are giving from a place which is karmic, you are doing so from a place of wanting something back. And that might be unconscious, or it might be not necessarily a tangible thing that you want back. It could be something that you want back along the lines of, if I do this for them, they will like me, or they will choose me, you know. So you may do something for a man because you think, if I do that, he will choose me and want to be in relationship with me. If I, you know, give to this person and help them, maybe they will help me back. And the problem is with karmic giving is, you know, we can end up feeling resentment and let down because we're not actually giving from this whole centered place. We're giving from a different place of expectation, but we're not communicating that. And then there's a disappointment when we don't get back. And so the next part of the foundation, as I explained, is the queen. And so the queen is the part of us that's sovereign, who is clear on who she is. She is empowered. She has a sense of vision and purpose. And, you know, sometimes people have that idea in their careers, but don't apply vision and purpose to their personal lives. And so what happens is, in relationships and dating, we end up falling into situations or staying in relationships that don't serve us because we aren't clear on actually what do we want? What do we want to experience in relationships? And not just in romantic ones, but also with friendships. You know, sometimes we can stay in friendships because, well, we've been friends since primary school, and, you know, we always have just been that. And even though when you meet that person, you come away feeling drained and exhausted and like the life has been sapped out of you, if we're not clear on who we want in our lives, if we're not clear on how we want to be treated, if we're not clear on where we can give and how we can give, if we don't have that vision, then we can end up being in situations where we are being drained. And, you know, this is sometimes easier, I suppose, if in business and career, because we have a particular direction that we think of going in. But also in situations of career and business, You know, when you are really clear on the direction that you are going in, when there are opportunities that arise, if you know the direction that you're going in, you know if that's going to be supportive to your vision, supportive to the direction. The Queen also has self-trust. So she knows that she can trust herself to make decisions. And knowing that if she makes a mistake, because we're human and we don't always get it right, that she trusts that she can pivot, that she can respond in a grounded way to what comes up and what happens next. And when I say grounded, that doesn't mean that you're not allowed to, you know, if you make a mistake, it doesn't quite work out for you, you know, allowing yourself to be in that moment of absolute panic, like sit with it, journal or speak to somebody who allows you the space to just speak about all of your fears, get it all out, and then you have an action plan and you trust yourself to be able to deal with it, to be able to pivot. And here, you know, the Queen is also good at leadership and delegation. And this is an area that a lot of women struggle with. So they struggle with asking other people for help, or if they do ask them for help, they micromanage. And I see this very, very often in relationships with women. When they're in relationships with men, they end up in a mother and son dynamic. And what that looks like is that she takes on all of the in the house. So it just said but then about the connection going. So okay, I'll keep going. So the mother and son dynamic is when she takes on all of the roles in the house. She does everything, and her partner, her husband, does less and less and less. And what happens is you end up with this imbalance. So she ends up taking on more and more and more, and he does less and less and less and less. And, you know, this I see so frequently. And what happens is when you can't delegate in a way of giving somebody else the full responsibility to do the thing, to do the task, and potentially make a mistake, because a lot of the reasons that women aren't delegating is the fear of the consequences of the person making a mistake. When that doesn't happen, the other person becomes more and more fearful of taking on any roles or initiating, because they don't want the backlash of what might happen if they get it wrong. And so that learning that trust, that ability, that sense of internal safety to be able to allow other people to take charge and acknowledge that people are going to make mistakes and support yourself, you know, if and when the person does. Because we all make mistakes, you know, that is something that we all do. And a really good example that I use is one with my ex-husband. When I made these shifts in our relationship while we were still married, he decided to take on the role of laundry. And initially he would forget to do the laundry, and then he'd do it and then forget to take it out of the washing machine. And as you know, that stinks. So then he'd have to put it on. But he ended up, you know, I left him not to say anything because he saw the consequences of forgetting things. So I didn't need to tell him what to do or anything, because he was able to see that for himself. And now he has a really great system for doing the laundry, better than me. He's more organized around that now than I am. So that's the power of giving people space to make mistakes and just staying grounded, because when people make mistakes, they know they've made a mistake, and we don't always need to remind them of the fact. And that is something that I always used to do, is remind him of every mistake that he made. So taking up space, you know, this is one that a lot of women can struggle with. And the reason being is, you know, we come from a patriarchal system, whereas women, we had to rely on men for our own survival, which meant that we put competition between each other for finding a mate and finding someone who could look after us and support us. Now we live in a very, very different world, where many of you are, you know, making your own money, looking after yourself, and financially don't need that security from a man anymore. However, it's still in our bodies and our nervous systems, and we still hear our own parents and grandparents, you know, that don't want us to stand out too much, you know, don't want us to put our head above the parapet, because then we become a target for other women. And, you know, for anyone listening, you've probably already heard, like, shine your light, because then it gives other women permission to shine theirs too. And, you know, it really is about that, taking up space, because as you do so, in the area of life or in your community, you're giving other women permission to be able to do the same thing as well. So the sort of shadow element of the queen is, you know, the person, the woman that's controlling everything around her, micromanaging. And that is often because of a lack of safety in her own body, a lack of being able to trust, and that need to micromanage because she lacks the safety within. Not being able to receive. So, you know, what can really cut off women from relationships is their ability to receive help, to ask for help. And that's from the small things, you know, to like letting somebody help them carry their bags. And, you know, I lived a period in my 20s of hyper independence where, you know, I don't need a man. I can do it all myself. Anything a man can do, I can do better. You know, I was absolutely that. And what that did is it created a barrier and a wall, you know, and it, in my relationship with my ex-husband, he had this desire to help and support me and do things for me. But my hyper independence basically pushed him away. And, you know, now I'm in a place where I can receive, and I receive, you know, with gratitude. And I would invite you to take a look at the 5 love languages. That's on my website. It was created by a guy called something Chapman. I can't remember his first name. But if you read about it on my website, and the great thing about the love languages is there are different ways to receive love. So acts of service, so that's people doing things for you. Words of affirmation, gifts, and that doesn't necessarily need to be anything expensive. It can be someone, you know, picking a flower and giving it to you. Quality time and physical touch. So, and everybody experiences and gives love in different ways. So it's acknowledging, where are you comfortable of saying thank you? And where do you feel this need to give back, you know, like fully receiving? So if someone gives you a compliment, how able are you to say thank you? You know, because so many of us go, oh, yeah, really? Oh, you like my hairstyle? Well, you know, it looks a bit of a mess because I've not washed it. You know, if someone gives you a compliment, just say thank you. Or, you know, another thing that we do is somebody gives us a compliment and we give them a compliment straight back, because we feel uncomfortable with receiving. And so my invitation is, you know, begin to notice, where could you start receiving more in life? So you're reaching in the supermarket for a tin of beans, you can't quite reach it, someone offers to get it for you. Instead of saying, no, I'll be all right, which clearly you're likely to take out the whole shelves if you continue trying, you go, thank you, that would be really great. How can you allow more receiving in your life? And then the final one written there is dim down. So where are you dimming yourself down? Where are you staying quiet? Where are you not speaking up for yourself? Where are you hiding? Where are you not showing up, asking for the things that you want, and saying the things that you don't want? And once we have created this foundation of the mother and the queen, what that does is that liberates us to be able to tap into the Temptress archetype. And the Temptress is the one that's fun, that's playful, that's sensual, expressive, that is able to feel herself and feel herself in a way that is empowering and fun and magnetic. And so this is the Temptress archetype is all about a woman who's able to connect to her own depth. One of the things that I hear so often, the 3 things that most women come to me when I say to them, you know, what do you want? After the conversation, and we're really like sort of deep diving, the 3 that most women want are to feel powerful, sexy, and they want freedom. And freedom doesn't come from your external environment, you know, by getting rid of this person. I mean, obviously creating boundaries and getting rid of people, yes. But what I mean is it doesn't come by completely changing your external environment. It comes from, freedom comes from your response to your environment. Because when you no longer are trying to please everybody else, be everything for everybody else, when you are sure in who you are and what you're doing, which is the mother and the queen archetype, you have your vision, you have your boundaries, and you're going in the right direction, then you have this sense of freedom that opens you up to life and to possibilities. And there is this deep sense of trust that no matter what happens, you're going to be okay. And this is where the Temptress comes, because when we feel safe, when we feel connected to our own power, our own yes and our no, we trust ourselves to stand up for ourselves, that sense of safety opens us and we're able to connect to our sensuality. We are able to go further into that place. And, you know, when we're not there, we are shut down. We are, you know, waiting for a moment and time to experience pleasure rather than looking for the pleasure in every day, you know. And what that looks like is, you know, slowing down, having your, like every morning I have coffee and chocolate, and if I'm at home, I'm with my cat and she sits on my knee, like she can smell the coffee and she comes over because she knows it's coffee time. And when the weather's nice, she'll come over, she'll meow, she'll go to the back door ready for us to go and sit outside. And I take those moments, you know, when it's summer, I'll put my feet in the grass, I'll feel the sun on my skin, and I will just feel how good that feels in my body and really allow myself to feel that, you know, and notice during the day what's going on around me, you know, instead of thinking of all the things that happened in the past and all the things that I need to do in the future. You know, I take that slowness and, you know, drive down the road and just notice like the trees, the way that they move. Yesterday, when I was driving home from the gym, there was this bird like bouncing in front of me. And I just took a moment as I was driving and I just noticed this bird and really allowed myself to like feel like that, you know, the cuteness of it and really experiencing that bird in joyful flight, you know, the small ones that bounce. Because as we can do that throughout our days, day to day, it means that we can tune into that pleasure and that aliveness and that joy at any time that we want to, because it's easily accessible to us. But also in the bedroom as well, we're able to open more. We're able to feel more. And at the beginning of these slides, you know, one of the things that I had written is, what if there is more? And women come to me and say they want more. They want more from sex. They want more from their relationships. And it's the Temptress. It's being connected to the Temptress and that openness that helps you connect to that more. It's that wild abandon. It's that openness, that expansion. And this is where the Temptress is. The Temptress is also so deeply connected to her emotional state. And this isn't about projecting emotions onto other people. It's about understanding that for her softness and radiance to blossom, that she needs to be able to feel her grief and feel her anger without projecting it onto other people and making it other people's problems, to create that lightness and space for bliss to arrive. And so I have some journaling prompts for you here. So you can pause for the mother and have a go at writing these down. There's quite a few, so you might want to take some time and come back to them. Then here, the queen, so maybe pause in here for some journaling prompts around the queen archetype. And then the Temptress, so pausing here if you want to do some journaling around the Temptress. And so the way that the archetypes can work in our everyday life is, I'm going to take you through it's going to be about 5 or 10 minutes, and make sure that you are in a space where you can really feel it, fully drop in. It's a visualization. And before we do, I'm going to invite you to think of a current challenge that you have in life. And, you know, if you need a moment to think, maybe pause the video And so what I mean by a current challenge, maybe you've got an issue at work with somebody, a colleague, maybe you don't know what to do next in your business if you have your own business, something that's going on in your life, maybe you don't know what to do in your relationship. So thinking of a current challenge, okay? So being really clear on the challenge and maybe the question that you want to ask, or clear on, asking for a particular outcome. So get really clear on that. And then once you are clear, I'm going to invite you to either lie down or sit in a way that's comfortable so you can fully relaxed. So I am sat currently on a birthing ball. That is not going to help you drop in and relax. So maybe a chair with like a back to it, or lying on the bed. And if it feels safe enough to close down your eyes or lower your gaze, whichever feels most accessible to you. And noticing the breath as it passes in and out of the nostrils, and noticing the belly as it rises and falls. Again, we're not looking to change the breath in any way. We are just noticing the breath. And I'm going to invite you to place yourself in a hall, like a medieval hall, a Baroque hall, something along those lines. So a grand hall. And in this hall are two thrones, and they are facing each other. And you find yourself seated on one of the thrones, looking at the throne in front of you. And there is a door to the right. And you have the question or the challenge that you have to your mind. And as you look to the door to your right, you have one of the archetypes come in, either the Queen, Mother, or Temptress, with whichever feels relevant to the situation. So just notice, first of all, what is she wearing? What clothes is she wearing? Maybe a figure that's completely made up. It might be a figure that represents somebody else. Just notice what she's wearing. And notice how she's moving. So she's coming in purposefully towards the throne opposite you. And just notice how she's moving, how she looks at you, how she smiles at you, how she acknowledges you. And notice how you feel looking at this archetype. Notice how she sits down on the throne and how she seats herself. Noticing how she looks at you, and just taking a moment to really look and notice her. And she asks you, what question is it that you have for her? What's the current challenge that you would like to get advice from? And sharing with her now your challenge. And what does she say? What's her response? What does she have to say about this challenge? Is there any more information that she can give you around it? Any more clarity? Is there anything else that she would like to tell you about this situation? Any other words of wisdom? And thanking her for the information, and you both stand up and walk towards each other. And as you meet, you hold hands, you look into each other's eyes, and you thank her and she thanks you, and you give her a hug. And as you hug, you notice that she becomes absorbed into you. And you notice how your posture and everything changes and shifts to become her. Notice how you feel in your body as this archetype. Just really taking a moment just to feel your posture, feel how you're stood or sat. Just notice how it feels to be her. What I want you to know is this is accessible to you anytime that you choose. This feeling, this wisdom is always there. Like that came from you and it is you. And really anchoring in these feelings, like holding onto that. I invite you to walk towards the door from which the archetype came. And you make your way through the door and it takes you back into the room where you are now. You move into the position that you're currently in, whether that's lying, sat down. And you feel yourself in that position, holding on to and anchoring in those feelings from that archetype. This is you. This is a part of you that you have access to whenever you want. And giving your toes and your fingers a wiggle, a stretch. And when you open your eyes, again, just looking around you first before you come back to the screen. And I would absolutely love to hear in the comments below any questions that you have. Share anything that any realizations that you had, anything at all that you feel was interesting, relevant, that you would love to share. And I would absolutely love to hear that. And if you want to explore a little bit more around the work of the Queen Mother and Temptress, there's the QR code there. And to connect to me in all of the different ways, on all of the different socials, not all of them, just a few of them, because I have boundaries. There is the link tree there. If you're watching from your phone, then I'll make sure that you get those links to the chat underneath. So thank you so much for joining me. I absolutely can't wait to hear how you found that. And if you don't feel confident or comfortable sharing in the comments below, then you're welcome to drop me an email or a message. Do let me know that it was on the Wise Talks that you came across this practice. And I would love to absolutely hear from you. Wishing you all the best and all the love. Mwah, and have a fabulous rest of your day.